So got the pump rebuilt. I still got to put the valves in it, but in the screen, but took it all apart, cleaned the vanes, everything. Everything looked to be in good shape. Just basically cleaned it all up real good and inspected it. To line the pump halves up, and my book mentions this as well, but I had already knew of it from when I did the 350. A big hose clamp like this, and you just start your bolts, have them loose, and tighten this clamp around where the two halves meet, and it'll line everything up. So it seems to work well. Tightened it down, and then I torqued my bolts, and one thing that's kind of nice, that when I went to Tractor Supply to pick up bolts for the air compressor, I always check out their clearance section, and in their clearance section they had these soft jaws, and they're I don't know what they're made out of. They're really soft. I don't know if they're nylon. Let's see what they're made out of. Doesn't say. It came with two different sizes, 4 and 6 inch, and these are the 4-inch jaws on here. But see, they're very soft. You can push on them. They're very pliable. So they work nice for stuff like this. And so I can clamp this pump in there without causing any damage whatsoever. And they're magnetic. They've got magnets on the back side that hold them to the jaws of the vise. They're on clearance. I think I paid $1.99 for them. And I've used them quite a bit for this project. But it worked out well to be able to clamp it in here, to be able to torque these, because it's kind of hard to hold this pump. But see, we've got our pump halves perfectly lined up. That clamp did an awesome job of getting it lined up. So now I'm going to finish up. I just kind of wanted to show you all that, the clamp, the hose clamp technique, and then also some of these soft jaws are really nice to have. If I had aluminum soft jaws, I probably wouldn't have trusted them on here, but being that these are kind of they're probably nylon, like a nylon or whatever, some kind of pliable stuff, I know it's not going to harm the pump. So let's continue on. I figured this was worth mentioning. I did borrow the sizer. For the installer, what I did is I used this piece of plastic that I cut, and I slipped it over here, slipped the sealing ring on the plastic, and then worked the plastic down, and then dropped it off in the thing. Of course, it stretches it out pretty good when you do that, and I didn't want to try to put this right on it, because there's not a big taper to it, so I wanted to make sure this didn't try to roll it. And so I slid the plastic, wrapped the plastic around it, and you can see it's pretty much cut almost exactly. We got a little bit of a gap right there, and what I'll do is I'll loosen it up and move this around and tighten it again. But I just barely, I'm not tightened down tight on that clamp, but what it's doing is it's shrinking that Teflon seal, and we should get a good fit. And because that's what I'm using for installation, after I get this one, after I leave this on there for a bit, I'll take it back off and use it to put my next seal on, and we'll get all 4 of them on there. So I just figured that was worth mentioning. I think you could size them like this too. I'm thinking it'll be fairly close to, the size it needs to be once this is done. But like I said, I did borrow the sizer. I don't have the sizer for these, so I'll be using a clamp for those. Clamp and the plastic like I've got here. I've heard, you know, people say they use Coke bottle. I didn't have a 2-liter Coke bottle, so I'm sure this is probably about the same thickness as a 2-liter Coke bottle. To add to this, I cut a bigger piece of plastic, longer, kind of curved it a little bit, and so I was able to slip it kind of coned over and get the sealing ring started, and then slide that plastic down to right where the sealing ring, right where the groove I wanted to, and then the sealing ring would slide on that plastic and just drop off in the groove. Worked really well. I mean, I'm sure the installation tool works better than that, but you can't get much easier than that. That worked very well. So definitely that Coke bottle idea, it's the same principle. Also, if I can find the link to that, I'll put it in the description, because they explain it pretty well. It's been a while since I read it, but it's basically the same thing. You cut a Coke bottle and wrap the plastic, make the plastic to where it wraps around, you know, about the size where it wraps around, and you slip it on and then slide it down, and or maybe the Coke bottle's long enough you don't have to slip the plastic. The plastic slid really easily on the shaft, so this was just a little bit too short. It's the longest piece of plastic I could find here in the shop, or just a scrap package. So yeah, so I'm gonna let those sit for just a minute, and then I'll put a clamp around them. That bottom one you can see is pretty well shrunk up, you know, just from the little bit of clamping I did to it. So I think it's small enough now we can get our sizing tool on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do these 3 and get them sized. I'll do them individually just to make sure I get them clamped just right. I don't want to, you know, risk messing one up because I don't have any extras. So, you know, I've been using this book. It's very detailed. So you get kind of to the end, to the valve body, and it just pretty much says clean the valve body and install it. They don't show any exploded diagrams, you know, and I'm wanting to really, you know, I've cleaned it up, but I'm wanting to pull it all apart and clean it, because there was a lot of metal that went through this transmission when the converter died, came apart. So you know, I want to make sure I get all metal shavings out, and that's going to involve, you know, taking this completely apart. So the other thing they don't mention is where the check balls go. They just tell you put the check balls in. So I had to source that information elsewhere, and that's where I got it. I think this may be the same resource I used to tear this thing down. And they're very detailed. You could probably rebuild using this. I bought the book, but you could probably rebuild it based on this. And they've got some good diagrams. Actually, this is from something else. I printed this separately. I accidentally stapled it with this. That's the valve body. They go through, you know, all the different stuff. It's probably not quite as detailed as the book, but they do, and they don't go into real details on the valve body either, just because they say there are lots of changes, you know, between the years. But they do tell you where all the check balls go, which is nice. So I printed those pictures out larger, There's a detail I found somewhere else to the valve body. And the check ball locations. So there's the ones in the case, and there's the ones in the valve body. So now that I've got a few more resources, I can continue on, and we will get this thing all cleaned up. I really like this kit that I bought. You know, it's nice because pretty much all the bags have are bag. You know, you've got stuff bagged separately, and it tells you what is in the bag. You know, and what part this is for. And not all of them have diagrams. Most of them do, though. And it came with a 3-to-2 control valve spring, and I thought another one, maybe that was it. So what they've got here is this is kind of neat. Let's see. So they tell you some improvements. So we're gonna go through this stuff, but they include this spring to help keep the converter from overheating, which is nice. Their English is not quite perfect on this, or the wording's not quite right, but it is nice that they include this. And they include all the torque specifications. It's a very nice kit. Very nice. Include a new spring there. Now I'm putting a Corvette Servo in it. Oh look, they include the check ball locations. That's nice. And then it's Spanish, so that's nice. All right, continuing on. It's next weekend, and what I determined after doing a little bit of research was that people were saying don't completely bypass the PWM, because doing this, what this does, completely bypasses this. So you get converter on, converter off, and which is fine to me, except for that it gives the converter full pressure. We've already put a boost valve in the pump, and people are saying online, of course, that that can cause it's too much pressure for the converter. It can cause the rivets to pop in the converter. And I talked to so ordered this. I talked to a transmission friend, and he said he's never seen a problem with this, but this is the right way to do it. So what you got here, this is the transgo shift kit, but it comes with a new valve for here, redesigned, and that's the way to go. It's a complete kit. I looked at the Sonax, S-O-N-N-A-X kit, and the problem I had with it was you have to buy these special reamers, and the transgo kit works as is. So we're going to go through here and go ahead and install a shift kit that should firm up our shifts as well. One thing this did include, where is it? Right here. It includes a new spring for the 4th accumulator. And on the 4th accumulator, we've actually showed you on another video, we pretty much disabled it, and we put a set screw in it. And also, I asked my friend about this. He said he'd recommend still doing the set screw and not the spring. He said you can't get 4th too firm. You know, he said by putting the set screw in there, it's not going to be too firm. So, you know, so we're going to go with that. We'll go ahead and put this, the new spring and everything in it. If it is too firm, all I got to do is take the set screw out, drop the pan, you know, and take my set screw out and put it all back together. So we're gonna go with that. I wonder, they've got a check ball right there. I like these transgo kits. I like the plate that they sent. It seems like a really good company. They do good instructions. It seems like they make good products. So the part number, I'll put a link on this, but it's a very complete set, and it was like 30 bucks, 30 something, and there's a lot in here. So I think it was a good deal. The Sonax kit was, Sonax, whatever you want to call it, was quite a bit more. And of course you had to buy the special reamers too. So we're going to get all this installed. I'm going to go through here, and we're still tearing this valve body down. I'm taking it all apart and cleaning it all up. Like I said, there were metal shavings all in this transmission from the converter. So we're just kind of, I'm pulling everything apart, cleaning it out, putting it all back together. So we'll continue on with that until I get this done, and then I'm going to go through and install all of the shift kit pieces. But see, this is what we've got here. So I don't have cylinder deactivation, so I don't need the spacer. So we should be in good shape.